Steve Kerr is set to join us. Is Steve with us, Fritzy?
Steve is all set.
Steve Kerr, NBA on TNT. You got the game coming up tonight, Steve?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Can I just add my 2 cents on the NFL thing you were just talking about?
Yeah, fire away.
I don't understand how you can legitimately try to bring up health-related issues and then try to extend the season.
Money.
I don't get it.
Money trumps health.
Well, I know, but just don't fake it. Just say it.
Well, the players. Why don't the players take a stand here, Steve, and say, no,
should.
we don't want to play. We don't want that extra money. We're worried about our health.
I think some of them have. I don't know if the union has, but it just drives me nuts every time I hear Goodell and the NFL talk about player safety and concussion concern, and then we're actually talking about more games. It's ridiculous.
I know, and they're going to add more playoff games, and as long as there's going to be money for the players, because if we're taking away the preseason games, then they're going to get more money.
Yeah,
they just have to weigh this out. I'll take the money. It's you know, pay me now and I'll pay for it later is really what the players are saying.
Yeah, how about a lifetime of health insurance for all the players? Maybe something like that.
I would like that too.
Yeah.
I mean, they're making billions here.
It's just sad. It's. I mean, I just the hypocrisy just really bothers me. And I love football and I watch, and we're all complicit if we're watching this and we're supporting it. But the fact that they're talking about extending the season is just. It's just nuts, and even the product. I mean, how many teams actually make it through the season in one piece anyway? So now you're risking hurting the product by having more injuries during the postseason. I don't know.
He's Steve Kerr, NBA on TNT. You got Game 1, Pacers and the Heat. A lot of I've seen articles now written that maybe the Heat feel like they're a little bit vulnerable, the way that LeBron reacted to Frank Vogel's alleged comments. You got Dwayne Wade's knee. Pacers maybe a little more experienced this year. Handicap this and just be honest with us. Pacers, will they beat the Heat?
I don't think so. I don't think they can score enough. I watch them. I think they're excellent defensively. They do some things that can bother the Heat. David West is a really tough matchup for Miami. He can really kind of be physical and force Miami to play big. That's one thing that Indiana does is they never go small. They never match down to what you do. They just play Hibbert and West and just figure out the matchups later and try to beat you up inside. And I really respect that, and I like their team. They're great defensively, but you look at their offensive numbers in the playoffs. They're shooting 42%, 30 from three. They have trouble scoring at times. And against Miami, you just have to find ways to score because Miami's they're going to score their share. And I'm just not sure the Pacers can get enough points. Phil
Jackson was on yesterday. We talked about a variety of things, including could LeBron ever be recognized as better than Michael Jordan? Having been a teammate of Michael's, what would it take for LeBron to be recognized as a better player when they're all said and done?
I've been asked this a lot. I just think, first of all, they're a lot different as players. And I heard your interview with Phil. I thought it was fantastic. But he kind of echoed what I was thinking, which was that Michael wanted to score. He wanted to just kill you with scoring. And LeBron still kind of has that point guard mentality. He wants to pass, but it's hard to compare them because they're different players. But in the end, at that level, it does come down to how many rings you have and how many times you win. But I think LeBron's already top 5 all time, and he's climbing every year. He's amazing, but he's just different from Michael. That's all.
Yeah, he's a hybrid. As I've said before, he has that athleticism that Michael had, but I think he has the court awareness of Magic Johnson. And if he had a little bit more of that Michael or Kobe DNA, he might play differently. I like what he does. I like how he plays. He defers sometimes a little too much, but I think he realizes now I'm the best player. This is my team, and if we're going to win, we're going to win because I have the basketball in my hands. Phil talked about a couple other things that he was done with coaching. Now the Clippers' job is open, Steve. When I talked to him yesterday, I said, have the Clippers reached out to you? And he said, no, not at all. Could you see a scenario where here it is, Los Angeles, you got Chris Paul, maybe you get Dwight Howard, you got Blake Griffin, you get some stars with Phil likes, and he could stick it to the Lakers?
It might be the only scenario that Phil would entertained coaching-wise. I mean, he's maintained all along that he's not going back to coaching, that physically it just takes a toll on him. But to be able to stay in Los Angeles, not move, and have a team that's got a lot of talent, that has to be intriguing at some level. But I still think his next step is in management and not in coaching. And I think that's the direction he's going to go. The question is where it's going to happen. Seattle seemed like it was all lined up, and obviously that goes out. So who knows? We'll see what he ends up doing. But I hope he gets back in the league. He's great for the league and for just for the fans too. To have him as part of the league, I think, is important.
If you're Kobe Bryant, how do you take those comments that Phil had in the book?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a little bit worse than Michael Jordan. I mean, I agreed with everything Phil said. I think Kobe is also playing in a little different era nowadays, where it's not as physical. But Michael was stronger, better defensively, not as good a ball handler. I think Kobe has better perimeter, like kind of breakdown skills when you're talking about just beating a guy one-on-one from the 3-point line in. Michael was probably a little better down on the block, but there's a lot of really great similarities between those two. Their mentality seems exactly the same to me in terms of just trying to rip your throat out, and that's what I respect about both guys.
How often I heard this story. How often did Dennis Rodman show up drunk for practice?
It might have happened a couple times. I mean, I think what the big thing was just getting him there. We had one of the guys on our staff, an assistant trainer. His job was to go over to Dennis's house and get him out of bed and bring him to practice.
But Phil would put up with this. Why?
Because Phil is Phil, and he. I think he understood people pretty well, and it wasn't like Dennis was stumbling in and not ready for practice. Dennis worked hard, and he was there, and his teammates respected him, and so because we all respected how hard Dennis played, I think Phil gave him a lot of leeway.
But different rules for different players?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everybody had different rules.
How many times did you show up drunk for practice?
Only a couple times.
That's what I thought. I had heard the story that Phil, that he Dennis would because he would be out late all night and then come into practice. Right. So he smelled of alcohol. Yeah, that happened, but that's all right. I mean, he went out and got 20 rebounds a game, and we won, and all was good. Well, it's like Bill Parcells with Lawrence Taylor. I got different rules. I got one set of rules for Lawrence Taylor and a set of rules for everybody else on the team.
It's true. It's true, and I think it's crazy to think you can just have the exact same set of rules for everybody on your team. I think that's a big part of coaching is understanding your players and knowing them as individuals and treating them accordingly. But you have to have sort of a bigger set of standards that everybody has to adhere to. But the rules don't have to be exactly the same for everyone.
Coming up tonight, it'll be Game 1, Pacers and the Heat. On a personal note, I want to thank you for being available, Steve, throughout the regular season and postseason. A lot of guys aren't, and TNT should be thankful that they have you. You're a great spokesman for them and the league. But I wanted to say that to you personally.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it, and I always love coming on your show.
All right. Well, when Fritzy calls again, don't say no, okay?
All right.
Thank you, Steve.
We'll see you later.
All right, Steve Kerr, NBA on TNT. Yeah, I heard that story yesterday. I heard from people after the Phil Jackson interview that wanted to tell me Phil Jackson stories. And these are people who played for him or against him, and then they go, did he ever talk about when Rodman would be drunk when he'd show up at practice? I go, no. Yeah, it happened all the time. Dennis would leave the club and go to practice. So he'd come in, smelling like alcohol. And then he'd have 20 rebounds later that night, and everything was fine.